Hi, my name is Alexandra, and I'm the founder and partner at Productwise, which is a boutique retained search firm. We do focus on working with seed to Series B stage of startups and bringing in the right kind of a talent to their teams. And today, what we're going to look at is a cost of a mishire. How do we calculate that? How do we recognize the kind of a full extent of what goes into that particular mishire, and what actually does it cost to the organization when we're making a wrong step when it comes to an important or leadership hire? So for that, and the way that I'd invite you to have a look at this is to review this as the tip of the iceberg type of a cost, and then the iceberg itself. So the tip of the iceberg cost is essentially direct trackable cost that we can associate very much directly with this particular mishire. So let's have a look at this from a perspective of of an organization. Let's say we're hiring somebody with a salary, no bonuses, no equity involved as of current for simplicity purposes, with a salary of 200,000. We do have in the interview process a founder who is involved, the CEO, a CTO or a VP, a CPO or a VP level of a product lead, and the head of the sales or VP of ops who is equally involved into the recruitment process. We do have a relatively fixed cost, let's say 30% of our salary for this specific role. That will be an internal team cost. So anyone who comes in terms of and helps to schedule, organize the team meetings. So the time of the people involved into meeting the potential candidate, the time of the recruiter who is working on this role, and since we're considering the cost of the mishire, let's also include the cost of letting go. That could be any legal direct implications. So somebody overworking and taking the responsibility that was belonging to the person to themselves, usually either, one of the C-suite representatives. So let's also sign this for simplicity purposes as a 30% of the salary of the role that we're looking at. Now, of course, we also have to consider the time when we're letting the person go and when we're actually recognizing that this is not the great fit for one reason or another. It could be because of the internal, company conflict. It could be because the person just realizes this is not the opportunity for them. So with that, keeping in mind that our cost of salary that was paid to the person will be varying and will be modifying our total direct cost of the mishire. So here we estimated that we need about 3 weeks of a founder's time to recruit, to internally communicate, try to resolve any issues that are arising that result in a mishire, and then also potentially absorb some of the cost of making sure that we're either rehiring the person or attempting to rehire the person, or basically dealing with the conflict that could have been created, or the lack of the resources that was created because the person had left. So again, for simplicity purpose, we're just going to estimate that at 3 weeks of the 52 weeks within a year, and that will give us the results. So as you can see, the direct calculation here with internal team costs and the cost of letting go being fixed would result into the direct cost of a mishire being attributed to this specific mishire at a minimum of $247,884. And it grows, of course, the longer we maintain the person in position. And if the person is leaving then after 11 months, this is essentially our direct cost as a company, right? The cost then of a rehire would subsequently be a lot larger, because we do have to sort of accumulate all of the time that the leadership is going to spend on hiring the right person again. And this is just the rehire cost. So if we're making a misstep, let's say, and making a mishire, we are going to sum either one of these costs together to achieve our full cost of the hire. As an alternative, of course, we're just going to place a direct kind of cost of a rehire by the headhunter, which in this case would be significantly lower at the 30% of the base. So now we're coming to a very interesting kind of a situation and interesting calculation. Why? Because this is not always taken into account by the many founders. But in fact, this is the massive proportion and a particle from a total cost of a mishire. And instead of looking at, a direct attributable cost, I would invite us to look larger at what actually our time of, not having the right person on board is costing us as a company. So we already know by the HBR research that the true cost of mishire is estimated between 5 to 15 times the annual salary of the person that was mishired. Some sources even go to say that this is up to 27 times, which in our case would help us to skyrocket this figure. But for the majority of the teams, the 1 to 3 million kind of range, especially at the early in your career for every role, is a substantial cost. Sometimes it's 50% of your seed round, or 25% of your Series A round. So I would not review this as as lightly as many are reviewing this. So where does the iceberg come from, right? And why is this hidden? So let's consider the situation where we're bringing in the VP of sales and we're not, let's say, getting to the amount of the sales that was expected, that was projected by the company, because we simply have a wrong person that perhaps is, really, really great at what they used to do before, but might not be a good fit for, the stage of the company that we are in right now with regards to, making sales. Or perhaps they're coming from a slightly different environment and they don't really understand or have to have a substantial time to catch up and understand the intricacies of the market that we're coming from. So the loss of the sales perhaps is very easily kind of calculated in this particular case. So let's say if we're looking at the projections of initial sales that we needed to make, say 5 million, we have a drop of 5%, 10%, or it could be larger, our amounts would be changing, right? So we're again going to take a very optimistic, like seed / Series A type of an estimate. But the more we expect the sales to be, of course, the larger the drop becomes, right? So on the example of a drop of 5% from the initial sales that needed to be or were 20 million, we're already losing 1 million just by this parameter itself, right? Because we don't really have the right kind of a person on this role. The market share perhaps is a largest component to this calculation of the iceberg itself, because, and especially during the COVID times, what we've seen is the speed to market for some companies is becoming so significant in order to be successful in their position, that losing a couple of months of the time where you could have been developing your product, selling the product, being there on the market, could be indeed so substantial that it's literally the situation between, are we surviving post the Series A, or are we just keeping this very, very low kilo profile? And that's, equally important for the investors to understand. With the delays or with the delays associated with the mishire, what will be the impact on the market share that is attributed or could be attributed to this specific, function that, or to this specific person whom we haven't quite got right the first time at least. So let's say if we're in the large market, even a drop of 1% could be quite, detrimental. A drop of 10% would be a lot more detrimental, of course. And if we're if we're even targeting 1% of this, huge market, and we do drop 10% from that 1%, that is already, a multi-million kind of a loss on our market in our calculation. And of course, oftentimes the cost of of letting people go, the cost of potentially rehiring them, the already cost that was initially placed in order to hire the right talent is equally going to be lost. So in a situation, if we're having a VP of sales that essentially did not, let's say, bring the output to the desired level, what we will see is that the lack of the sales will affect the whole organization. So do think about, product engineering. We can't suddenly develop that many features, right? That will affect our market share because we're no longer getting to be as competitive or, as customer focused as perhaps our competitors are. But the loss of the individuals within our team would equally be rather prominent. So outside of, just to keep it simple, again, I took the cost of letting go fixed to what we've considered that before. And of course, dependent on the size of your organization, you might be losing 20 people, which for 100-person organization is already a substantial loss at one given time. Or it might be for large organizations, you might be losing 500 people. So think about, losing the 500 super talented engineers and product managers, operation professionals, customer service agents. What kind of impact does that cause with regards to not just, your people that you've trained and letting them go, and the direct financial impact that it causes, but genuinely to your image as an organization, and to then slower recruitment processes in the coming future. So again, this is, we could play around with those numbers as much as we can, look at the worst case scenario, the best case scenario. The point that I've been striving to make in here is that even if we are targeting a relatively small market, right, or a percentage of the market, of a larger market, or if we even experience a 5% drop in sales from our initial perspective, the cost is becoming very substantial if we consider the iceberg itself. So in fact, and I know that perhaps HBR would be shocked to see this, but if we're considering the market share loss, the direct sales loss, the loss of the people, our cost even in this organization at our mock-up organization could be already multi-million type of a loss. So my advice would be to consider every single hiring decision with a care. Make sure that you bring the right people in order to avoid such a cost parameters, both direct and indirect implications, of course. And I do hope that was helpful for you to recognize and appreciate the whole iceberg as it stands. Thank you.